Ivan, I heard the news, one of the neighbors called out to the man. Ivan inwardly sighed, realizing that he had encountered the village's most notorious gossip. There was no avoiding it now. He would have to endure listening to her. What happened, Baba Luba? He reluctantly inquired. The Vasilyevs are expecting guests, Baba Luba began, her tone filled with judgment. They're gallivanting around the village again, causing people to shake their heads. It's unfortunate for the elderly. They've had 3 children, but none of them were raised properly. The daughter has been missing for 5 years, refusing to even show her face at her parents' house. And the sons. Baba Luba shook her head disapprovingly. They're nothing but alcoholics. Even the wife of the eldest son enjoys her drinks, and they have a child. What good can come from a girl like that? Ivan simply shrugged, maintaining his composure. He had grown accustomed to Baba Luba's tales and knew not to take them too seriously. I see, Baba Luba, I must be on my way to work. I'm running late. Thank you for letting me know, he said, attempting to soften the woman's demeanor. I'll try my best to avoid running into Aunt Dusa and Uncle Misha's sons. With that, Ivan continued on his path, contemplating how some people fixate on the lives of others. He wouldn't have been surprised if Baba Luba had immediately rushed to the Vasilyevs to inform them that he, Ivan, despised their sons and considered them to be nothing more than drunkards. Thankfully, the villagers had long grown accustomed to the tales spun by the village gossip, and they didn't take her words seriously. As he walked, Ivan found himself wondering who might be visiting the Vasilyevs. Perhaps it would be Valerka, the youngest son. They had been classmates and had formed a strong friendship. Even now, they maintained a good rapport. No, it was unlikely to be Valerka. He would have given Ivan advance notice of his arrival, as he couldn't resist the call of the hunt. He would have informed his friend in advance, signaling that it was time to prepare for their forest adventures. So Grigory was coming. Ivan sighed with a sense of regret. Baba Luba hadn't exaggerated the situation. Grishka truly was a heavy drinker, and what was worse, he had no sense of moderation. Grigory lived a lavish lifestyle, often hosting raucous parties that attracted all the village's drinkers. Since Ivan's house was located next to the Vasilyevs, he had become an unwilling witness to many of these gatherings. Sighing once more, Ivan couldn't help but think how nice it would be if Grishka could stay away for a while. On Saturday morning, Ivan woke up early. The clouds were gathering in the sky, indicating rain later in the day. But for now, the weather was pleasant. The scorching heat that had plagued the village for the past week had finally subsided. Ivan realized it was the perfect time to tend to his neglected vegetable garden, which had become overgrown. His mother's cherished beds needed attention, and she would surely visit her son one of these days. Putting on his gloves, Ivan headed out to weed the garden. He was fully engrossed in his task, trying to beat the oncoming rain, and failed to notice anything else around him. "Uncle, why are you picking flowers?" he suddenly heard a child's voice. Startled, Ivan turned around. Standing next to him was a 4-year-old girl with neatly braided blonde pigtails. She wore a yellow dress, and a heavily smeared greenish scrape could be seen on her right knee. The little girl clutched a toy watering can to her chest. Ivan glanced at his gate. Had he forgotten to close it, allowing the girl to wander in? But no, the gate was securely shut. "How did you get here?" Ivan asked, his voice stern. The girl showed no signs of being flustered. She held up her toy watering can and pointed toward the fence. "There's a hole there. I was walking by and saw you picking flowers. I came to ask why. They're beautiful." Ivan let out another sigh. It was clear now she was Grisha's daughter, the granddaughter of the Vasilyevs. From this day forward, his peaceful life would be disrupted. "They're not flowers," Ivan explained to the girl, who patiently stood beside him. "They are weeds. Look, there's a carrot growing right here. Do you like carrots?" "Nope," the girl replied. "All right," Ivan waved his hand dismissively. "The carrots grow here, but these flowers prevent them from growing. Do you want me to give them to you? The girl hesitated for a moment before nodding. I do, but let's pick them together, she suggested. All right, Ivan agreed. For another half an hour, Ivan continued his work in the garden. His little helper remained by his side, constantly asking questions. After about 30 minutes, the first raindrop fell onto Ivan's hand. He decided to stop his work, picked up the girl in his arms, and headed towards the neighboring yard. Flowers, my flowers, the child exclaimed, waving her hands. Ivan returned, handing the little girl a bouquet of weeds, and then proceeded to the neighbor's house. Masha, Masha, where are you? Aunt Dusha's voice called out. Aunt Dusia, Ivan called back. I think I found your Masha. Thank you, Vanya, the woman rejoiced. We were looking for her everywhere. Where did you find her? In my garden, Ivan replied. Masha, the woman said, surprised. What do you have in your hands? Flowers, Masha answered straightforwardly. My uncle gave them to me. The next morning, Ivan stepped out into his yard and instinctively glanced at the neighbor's house. It appeared quiet. Then he cast his gaze upon his vegetable garden, which he had managed to weed the previous evening after the rain. Everything looked fairly presentable. Unfortunately, he hadn't found the time to tidy up the house. His mother wouldn't be too pleased with that, but he had grown accustomed to her incessant remarks about needing to get married and have a woman take care of things. Ivan adjusted his cap and strolled to the bench outside his house. His parents would be arriving any minute now, so he opted to wait there. Children were frolicking around, mostly the local boys. Ivan recollected his encounter with Masha yesterday and chuckled. She was a bold girl. It was a pity her father was, well, perhaps her mother was more normal. Just as he was thinking about the girl, the gate of the neighboring house swung open. A little girl, held by her grandfather's hand, emerged from the gate. The little one scanned her surroundings, then tugged on her grandfather's sleeve and pointed towards Ivan. Ivan noticed that Uncle Misha glanced in his direction and shook his head disapprovingly. The little girl pouted. Ivan decided to find out what was going on. What's happening? He inquired, greeting his neighbor. Well, you see, here's the situation, Uncle Misha began. Dusia went to the farthest store and won't be back for about 40 minutes. I need to rush to the office to deal with a lost bill of lading. It should only take 10 or 15 minutes. And this daredevil here refuses to come along with me to work. I take it you two met yesterday. Yes, Ivan grinned. We weeded the garden together. Why don't you leave her with me? I'm waiting for my parents. We can take care of her together until you return. Yes, yes, Grandpa, the girl exclaimed, bouncing up and down. I want to stay with Uncle Vanya. I promise to behave myself, as if you could handle it, the grandfather chuckled. And who are we waiting for? Masha promptly inquired, taking a seat next to Ivan on the bench. We're waiting for my mother and father, he explained. Mom is also coming to see me the day after tomorrow, the girl beamed. Wait, Ivan was surprised. So you're alone with your grandparents, and you're not even crying? Why would I cry? I'm a big girl, and I prefer being with my grandparents than in the city. There are cars everywhere, but here there are flowers everywhere, and Grandma and Grandpa are here, the girl smiled. You don't have to go to kindergarten. Do you not like going to kindergarten? Ivan asked. Nope, the girl replied matter-of-factly. There's lumpy porridge, you have to take naps during the day, and there aren't enough toys. Hello, Ivan heard the voices of his parents. And who is this guest you have? This is Masha. Ivan introduced the girl, hugging his mother. She's the granddaughter of the Vasilyevs. They all entered the house. To Ivan's surprise, his mother paid no attention to the dust on the shelves or the arrangement of the dishes. She didn't mention anything about the vegetable garden either. Instead, she engaged in conversation with Masha and appeared deep in thought. Ivan sensed that he was in for a long discussion about the need for him to have children soon. Aunt Dusha arrived, and Ivan handed Masha over to her, casting a puzzled glance at his parents. Why didn't you even come out to say hello to Aunt Dusha? Did you have a fight? Ivan questioned his parents. No, his mother replied. We'll talk to Dusha and Misha later. Right now, we need to talk to you. About what, Mom? Ivan asked, bewildered. What's going on? His mother looked at him with a mix of shock and concern. Don't you understand anything? What do I not understand? He pressed for clarification. Masha, who is she? His father interjected. Aunt Dusha's granddaughter. You saw her when she took her away. Ivan started. It's a complicated situation, his mother concluded. Who are her parents? Ah, Ivan stretched, piecing it together. So it's Grishka and his wife. Grigory's daughter is no older than 2 years, Ivan's mother confirmed, studying her son's reaction closely. But if Masha isn't Grisha's daughter, and definitely not Valerka's because he hasn't had children yet, then she must be Katja's child, his ex-girlfriend Katja. The same one who abruptly moved to the town 5 years ago without any explanation, and she hasn't been back since. Ivan looked at his mother in shock. Yes, she nodded, validating his thoughts. And she has your eyes. Mom, it can't be. Ivan shook his head. I have to go to the Vasilyevs. Wait, my son, his father called out to Ivan. You need to calm down. Take some time to consider everything. And what is there to consider? I have a daughter, Ivan stated. Yes, you do, his mother acknowledged. And you have every right to be angry with Katerina for keeping this from you. But there's a little girl who's innocent in all of this. Before you go anywhere, you need to decide how you're going to approach her and behave around her. Ivan remembered Masha's words about her mother coming soon, so he decided to postpone his visit to the Vasilyevs and wait for Katja's arrival. He wanted to find out everything from her directly. On the appointed day, Ivan's parents accompanied him once again as they went to the Vasilyevs' house. Ivan knocked on the door, and Aunt Dusha answered. A fleeting expression of fear crossed her face when she saw the visitors. Dusia, Ivan's mother, spoke up. We have already pieced it all together. It wasn't difficult to connect the dots. Let us in. We have a lot to discuss. Aunt Dusha nodded and stepped aside, allowing them to enter the house. Katja, she called out, come down. Someone's here to see you. Soon footsteps could be heard from upstairs, and Ivan laid eyes on Catherine for the first time in 5 years. She had blossomed into an even more beautiful woman. Ivan couldn't help but be captivated by her presence. On the other hand, Catherine noticed Ivan had paled. So you figured it out, she whispered. I didn't, he admitted. I was clueless, but my mom understood. Why did you run away? Catherine shifted her gaze towards her parents. Masha is still asleep, she said. Do you mind if we step out into the yard? I think we should have a private conversation first. Everyone nodded in agreement, and Ivan followed Katja outside. She guided him to a set of armchairs on the veranda, and they took a seat, ready to talk. I don't have a satisfactory answer to your question, Katja admitted. I was foolish and scared. I was only 19 when I found out I was pregnant. You weren't much older at the time. The entire village would have talked about the pregnant schoolgirl. I imagined the consequences of telling you, fearing that you wouldn't want me or the baby. I couldn't take back my decision. If anyone found out, it would become common knowledge, and I would become a laughingstock. I didn't think you would want to raise the child, she continued, explaining her reasons for keeping it a secret. What makes you think I would have given up on our child? Ivan asked. I already told you, Katja replied. I don't have a reasonable answer to that question. At first, I didn't even tell my parents why I was leaving. I only informed them when I was 7 months pregnant. They wanted me to return, but I thought it would be safer to give birth in the city where there are better doctors. I promised to come back afterward. However, Masha was born fragile and constantly ill for the first year and a half. The move kept getting postponed. And then, so much time had passed, and I thought you no longer needed me. I had nowhere to go back to. That's how it happened. Why are you here now? Ivan asked. Did you think I wouldn't understand? Although, he added, I wouldn't have understood immediately, the fool that I am. It's not that, Katja explained. I had a job at a sewing college. I completed my studies there and continued working. Masha and I lived in the college dormitory. It was challenging, but we had a roof over our heads. However, I was recently laid off, and we had no other options. We're returning to the village. Masha is thrilled, but I don't even know. So you were planning to come with the baby without saying anything to me. Ivan trailed off, a mixture of emotions swirling within him. Katja shook her head. I only arrived today. I was planning to come and tell you everything tomorrow, especially since your mother informed me that you had already seen Masha. There was no point in waiting any longer. What do we do now? Ivan asked, seeking guidance and clarity in the midst of the complex situation. I don't know, Katja replied. I'm not imposing anything on you. As for Masha, it's up to you to decide if you want to acknowledge her as your daughter or not. If you don't want to, I won't tell anyone in the village either. Katja, first of all, it's evident that she's my daughter, Ivan responded. And secondly, I want to be a part of Masha's life. I want to be her father. Then give her a few days to adjust, and we can explain everything to her, Katja suggested. Katja, Ivan said, looking at her seriously. I won't hide the fact that I'm extremely angry with you right now. You kept our daughter hidden from me for 4 years without any valid reason. But I love you, and I want us all to live together. Tears welled up in Katja's eyes as she smiled. And I love you, she whispered. And so Ivan and Katja embarked on a journey of reuniting as a family, ready to create a loving and nurturing environment for their daughter Masha. It was a path filled with challenges and forgiveness, but their love for each other and their commitment to their child prevailed. They embraced the opportunity to build a future together, united by their shared love and the joy of discovering the bond they had missed for far too long. And with that, their story finds its end as they step into the next chapter of their lives, determined to make the most of the precious time they now had as a family. Thank you for subscribing and like it.